My guest is the bass guitarist, and along with many other roles he has with the rock group The Clarks. We'll talk about music and life with Greg Joseph. Welcome. How are you, Greg? And okay, tell me right now where you are. Go ahead.
I'm in St. Augustine, Florida for a couple of days, just enjoying what you're not enjoying up there, unfortunately.
Well, let's start off with, what is it you love about music?
I realized early on, I think, with music that it's going to be a lifetime thing. It's a thing that takes me away from the stresses of the day and the world. It's always relaxing when I'm doing it by myself. And on the other hand, it's a way to connect with people.
When did you really feel you were focused on music?
I bought my first acoustic guitar when I was at Indiana University of Pennsylvania my freshman year because I was a little bit bored, and a couple of guys showed me how to play. The second year I bought a bass, and then I realized that I'm really hooked on this thing. And my junior year I hooked up with some guys. One of those guys was Rob James from our band. That's when I really got the bug for the whole thing.
The formation of a band, you hear so many stories about how guys getting together and then they break up. What about the story with how you guys got started, and did you think it would really work?
I had been in a couple of bands here and there, and you kind of got a feel from the beginning that they weren't going to work. But it was something to do at the time until you found the right guys to play with. And whenever I found Rob, or he found me, I'm not sure how that all came together, he was interested in playing some cover tunes, really cool cover tunes from bands that I'd never heard of, and also writing original music. And I think that was the first time anybody I'd been associated with wanted to write original music. That was fascinating to me.
You have to perform in front of people also, and at what point do you say, wow, people like us?
Yeah, and that's when we kind of got up and running at IUP. We started playing 3 sets a night, cover tunes at fraternities or bars. We realized that the couple of original songs we had, we could sneak them into the set right after a fast song or right after a real popular song, and people would stay up and dance and be interested in those tunes. So we found a way to put those original tunes in. People took a liking to them, and we were like, okay, hey, let's keep writing. And, our goal was to make a record, and so we did.
Do you look out at the audience and they're having a great time, they're enjoying themselves? Do you ever take time to step back and say, this is really great what we're doing, and the fact that they look up to us?
I find myself not looking at the band as much and really focusing on the audience and seeing the delight that they're having. And the fact that they show up after this many years and know all the words and keep coming back is amazing to me. It doesn't happen without them showing up. And obviously they show up because they find something special in us. So, man, it's a great relationship that we have with our fans.
Well, speaking of relationships, Bruce Springsteen says that democracy in a group is a ticking time bomb, and he talks about the fact that the Beatles and a lot of different groups, what happens to them. What about with the Clarks? How have you been able to maintain that democracy and not have constant conflicts?
Democracy works to a certain extent, yes. In a band with 4 people, somebody's got to settle the ties that you have in there. And at times you are subject to the weakest link of the chain. Who's the most risk-averse person? And that's what they'll decide. So, yeah, it can be frustrating at times. But I think at this point we've ironed out who controls what issues and who has the most passion about what issues. When it comes to business decisions, people rely on myself for what would be strong merchandising issues, or our tour manager steps in and he'll help with those things. When it comes to doing set lists, that goes to somebody else. When it comes to what songs to put on a record, management kind of steps in. So there are checks and balances that we sort of have in place that things get done and it doesn't become frustrating. As Springsteen, I totally get what Springsteen's point of view is. At some point there has to be a leader of every issue.
Well, speaking of recording and a record company, what about your situation? You hear about so many groups that years later they talk about how they were taken advantage of and what a difficult situation it is. Did you guys encounter that somewhat?
Have you ever read an article or spoke with a band that said they loved their record company?
No.
That answers a big part of that. But we've had 2 relationships with record labels. One was out of California, and that was a fairly short-lived episode. In the end, we did come out with the band intact. There was some contractual maneuvering that had to go on to get us out of that contract. And then we found another label that we worked with for 3 records, Razor and Tie, out of New York. Overall, we had a good working relationship with them. They let us record how and where and what we wanted to record, and then they promoted it. And I think that relationship just kind of came to a logical end. But so that one wasn't too bad. And then from there, we realized that they weren't really providing anything that we couldn't provide ourselves in a digital age, that we couldn't do through our own distribution, our own marketing networks. So why have them make all the money off of our songs that we could probably make ourselves?
When I talk to a lot of athletes, they mention that there's the idea that I'm really good. On the other hand, am I really that good? And at times do you question whether, do we really belong in this business? Are we phonies that we're not that good? But on the other hand, yeah, we are pretty good. So do you ever have that back and forth at times?
Absolutely. It seemed like when you'd go to New York or Nashville, you would be in an ecosystem where there are so many good musicians. But then you realize that a lot of those musicians are dysfunctional or can't find the right outlet for what they do. They're great musicians, but they can't handle the business side or the touring side or the people and personality side. And the Clarks is about strong personalities, of being friends and the dynamics that happen. And if you can't do that, you can't have a band.
There are so many good musicians out there, but a lot of it's luck also, isn't it? Being in the right place at the right time?
A lot of it is luck. Boy, I can't put a percentage on that, but you trace through band careers. I'm reading the Stevie Van Zandt book right now, and him being in the right place at the right time, meeting this person, that person. I can honestly say that that was the same thing with us. In Cleveland, at a music festival, when our record label was there and the band across the street said, hey, you got to see these guys that are playing across the street. And, it was just somebody turning a record guy on to us on a particular night in Cleveland. That it's luck. That's complete luck.
Joining us, Greg Joseph, a member of the rock group The Clarks. When you're playing, do you get a feel after a couple songs that the audience is not reacting well? How do you react to that yourselves? Are there things you have to try to do to try to get the audience into it more, or is there some nights where it's just not going to work?
I think we pretty much stick to the set list the way the set list is written. At that point, it really comes down to, can you turn the audience around, or can you get them involved in some ways? And sometimes you can't. But for the most part, I think you do look out for people in the audience that are having a good time. I know there have been a number of times that we've gone out and played, and you're like, oh my God, that was horrible. Nobody was watching. Nobody paid attention. That's not a thing that happens around our region. But when we've tried to stretch out or been in New Market, you'll say, that was a disaster. And then after the show, you realize that 10 or 15 people come up and say, you guys were really good. And you can always look for that good in the bad of the night, and you always find it.
You've done some jingles. How is that different from doing a song?
A song is an open-ended sort of a box or a cup. A jingle is a box with all sides intact, and you need to fit whatever message in that box and close the lid. It's a finite number of seconds. It's a finite message. It's a finite number of words. It's a finite vibe that happens within that. And that's a fun puzzle to do every now and then. I really enjoy doing that.
You hear the term writer's block. Do you have the same type of thing at times where you're just not working? I'm trying to put something together and just can't do it right now.
Yeah, I think I'm going through a little bit of that right now. And eventually you get through it. The other big thing that helps is the other guys in the band. Have them bring in ideas. And what we'll do is start throwing around chord ideas or a small lyrical idea that might sort of perk up your ears a little bit and get you out of that place.
Now, I did my homework on you, and of course we know the internet never lies. I read that you can't read music. Is that correct?
I don't think any of us can. Rob probably could get his way through, but no, I never learned how to. And I think that's probably a majority of rock musicians today could probably say the same thing.
If someone's starting out trying to do what you did, do you recommend it or not?
I think there is a knowledge base that you have to acquire to get to a point where you know the rules, But on the other hand, I know so many trained musicians that came out of music colleges that are so worried about the numbers and letters that they don't have any room for creativity. So there's a fine line between that. I think you need a little bit of a knowledge base. And I got that from the guys that I learned from, learning the particular chord. And a lot of it is sitting down and listening to music and saying, wow, what was that? And certainly these days, we didn't have that opportunity when starting out. But the internet has all the rules, tricks, lessons, guitar charts, bass charts, drum charts for every song imaginable. And I think that's a great learning base as well. There's a creative end to that. Yeah, that comes from your own noggin at that point, and everybody needs to have that creative side to them.
So final moments with Greg Joseph, bass guitarist with the rock group The Clarks. All these years you guys have been together. You've been a lot of places. Do you have a funny or bizarre story about something over these years?
Boy, that's an endless list of stories, and one that always sticks with me early on, which I think could have discouraged some people, but we worked our way through this situation. We were going to Youngstown. We were invited to play an opening slot for Joe Walsh's band many, many years ago. We were invited by the radio station that was sponsoring the show, and we drive up to the venue in Youngstown. It was a big theater at the time, and we pull up in front, and our tour manager goes inside, and he doesn't come out for a few minutes. I'm like, geez, I wonder what's going on. And I walk into the building, and the first thing that I hear when I walk in is, I don't care who the Clarks are, they are not playing here tonight. Which always adds a little bit of drama to the day right there. They had a dispute as to how we got on the bill and why we were on the bill. Joe Walsh's band at the time was carrying a comedian with them because they didn't want to have an opening act. They didn't want to have to adjust gear on stage. These days, I totally get where they were coming from. At that point, I think we all looked at each other and we were petrified like, oh my God, what the heck is going on? In the end, it all got straightened out. The comedian got to do his thing. We got to do our thing. Joe Walsh got to do his thing. You know, no harm, no foul. But when you walk into a situation where the tension starts at 4:00 in the afternoon and lingers through till the end of the show, you have those nights and you learn from them and you kind of move on.
What's the future for you and for the group?
The near future, we're going to release 3 new songs coming up this spring. When we get the third of those songs out, we'll do a big show in the Pittsburgh area at Stage AE. The summer will be our usual outdoor festivals and keeping busy with our show schedule. Last year with COVID, we ended up with a pretty good year. There wasn't too much canceled or anything from June onward, and we'll pray that that will be the case this summer. And then we'll just continue to record a few songs at a time and get them out there. We're not going anywhere.
What about you personally?
Personally, I'm just continuing to write and do what I do. I work on a project with the public radio station here in town, a student recording project, and I've been doing some teaching in the past, so I'll probably continue with that course of action.
Thanks for joining us, and rock on.
Yeah, appreciate it.